finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, and no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right. This is actually episode 53. We have two 51s in our queue, so we'll fix that at some point.
If you are astute enough and pay attention and are that geeked out on our show, you would have noticed it. Otherwise,
if you're normal, you probably didn't.
It's 53. That's a celebration.
Yeah,
this is a celebration episode. We're doing highlights, top shows, favorites of our first year in podcasting. It's a year-end review. I think that's pretty exciting. We made it a full year. That's how many podcasts don't.
Virtually all of them don't make it a year.
Virtually all of them?
Virtually
well, that's
all of them.
kind of frightening because there's a lot of podcasts out there.
Yeah, but it's been a really super crazy journey, actually. I find it when we started this and we were really even dopier than we are now as far as doing this, I never would have imagined that we would have had the connections to the people that we did, built the relationships that we did, built relationships with patients that we'd have never seen before, with international experts.
Who knew a podcast could
was crazy.
Change our lives actually in this way?
I was really, really crazy. It's been crazy. So without further ado, we'll kind of go through, where we've been, what we really liked, what we're going to hopefully key in on coming up in the next year. I really want to promote some of our early shows.
Well, I have a list, and I asked you to make a list of your top 5 favorites from the past year. Did you do that? Or do you need a minute to think about it
sort of,
while I give you mine?
It's honestly difficult because the shows have been so wildly diverse. I mean, there's okay, what's your favorite? Is it the favorite as far as the content?
Okay. You're just making things too complicated.
Is it favorite as far as the funnest one for us to have done?
You didn't do your homework, so you can think about it while I give you some fun information, because you know me, I'm all about the details. So, as far as the listeners go, what do you think the top 5 episodes were?
As far as the listeners, it's all COVID. It starts with McCullough and goes down from there.
Well, the top 10 episodes are all COVID related. You nailed it. The number 1 episode downloaded by you, the listener, was number 18 with Dr. Peter McCullough, early COVID treatment. That was in May of 2006. And the number 2 episode was the subsequent recording with him, which was a continuation, episode 19, Sinking the Needle with Dr. McCullough, that aired on May 13th. By a long shot, that was the top one. Then at number 3, I
think it's Paul Alexander.
Yeah, it's Dr. Paul Alexander talking about COVID vaccines in kids. That's episode 40, October 27th. Coming in a near number 4 behind is actually COVID 921, the one that we did, talking about what had been happening with COVID as of September, kind of just a summary. And that was episode 36. I was surprised. And then 5th one was episode 37 on vaccines, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that we aired in September, which was a basic sort of summary on what's good about vaccines, bad about vaccines, and possible side effects, etc. So then the next 5 behind that were all COVID as well. So no surprise. I mean, it's what people want to hear, even though I get tired of it. That's what has our listeners tuning in.
Yeah, the ones that I would promote heavily.
Well, wait.
Wait,
I didn't ask you your top 5 yet.
Too bad.
Just do things in order and make my life more organized. So what do you think was the top episode that was not a COVID episode?
Well, I know which one it should be.
What do you think it was?
It should be Steve Torrance.
The top non-COVID related
cancer
episode was number 9, fentanyl, the personal cost. This episode was on March 3rd and was when we actually interviewed some friends of ours who lost their son to a fentanyl overdose. And it is like super touching, and I hope more people, we should just,
that's my,
I'm thinking we should go back and do a series and just replay those fentanyl episodes again, because those were like amazing, and that was super touching.
That's my favorite episode.
Yeah.
Like it was absolutely the hardest, but the Reisers were so unbelievably open and honest and in sharing their pain, but their delight in their son. I mean, you know, like the greatest, it's probably the greatest line in any of the shows we did in the entire year was when Charmin says, "My son's more than an overdose. My son's more than a statistic." And I mean, if that doesn't rip your guts out, you have no soul. And actually, that's what I was going to say before, which is I would really, really, if you like any of the stuff we've done, please go back and it starts at episode 5, with the road to hell is paved with Percocet. And then episode 5, 7, 9, 11, and 12, those are all the, not 11,
It's
10 and 11.
10 and 11.
10 and 11. Those go through the entire, like, our kind of take on the opioid pandemic or epidemic. Everything's a pandemic now, I guess.
Actually, it's frightening. It was in the news that fentanyl overdoses and illegal importation of fentanyl is now exceeding heroin in the U.S.
Yeah, well, it's not a surprise.
No.
If you
well,
go,
for some people,
but I would
it's
really,
still a
really
surprise.
encourage people to listen to that, especially if you're interested in the COVID stuff. And the reason is really simple: is this kind of mass psychosis, manipulation of data, believing really bad science has happened before, and the most recent, you know, major outcome of that in medicine that I can recall, at least in my career, was the opioid epidemic. And that all started people are, they blame Purdue Pharma and they blame this. No. This is exactly the same as COVID. It's doctors' fault.
Mm-hmm.
We own that. Actually, we own it way more than COVID, because at least in COVID, there are people that are dissenting and freaking out and yelling and screaming. They're getting censored. So this idea of this massive censorship plus, the only thing you can do is what the government says, that never really kind of happened in opioids, but we really owned it as doctors. And we caused it. We caused it because we believed a very convenient lie, which was if you have chronic pain and you take an opioid, you'll never become an addict. Why did we believe it? Why did we propagate it? Because it worked in our best interest.
Mm-hmm.
The patient left happy. The patient left in 2 seconds instead of 20 minutes. I could see extra patients if I wanted to. It didn't cost me anything because I wasn't an opioid addict. Meanwhile, you kind of live above the fray. Unless you're working in an inner city clinic, you don't see it. Your patients tend to come in fairly well groomed. And then, giant corporations get online and they're like, are you kidding me? These guys are absolutely willing to write prescriptions they're literally willing to be legal drug dealers. Like,
right.
What company would not take that, right?
I know. Well, don't give it all away.
And so
let's hope that the people. Yeah, I think we should recycle those episodes.
Those
and
episodes
people go back and
are really. I really would encourage people to go back. And then Ben Westhoff, who is this guy that was into raves and whatnot and loved electronic music, and then all of a sudden, all of his friends that he used to go to shows with started dying from fentanyl overdoses. So he's an investigative journalist.
Yeah, his book is amazing. I listened to the audiobook, Fentanyl Inc., which you can do that way. You can read it. And if you scroll back on our Instagram or Facebook pages and see our headliner, posted a picture of it on there, but it's an amazing story, which he gives a little great summation on our show of how he infiltrated these fentanyl labs in China, posing as a drug dealer, and it just makes me even squeeze my little goosebumps together now just thinking about doing that.
Yeah, I would.
Living on the edge.
If you liked any of our recent stuff or interviews, that interview is amazing. These were earlier before
right.
things got more. But those, if you're going to go back to the opioid one.
So, okay. Guess what the top episode was in our Doctor as Patient series?
I think it was the oncologist gets cancer.
Yeah, it's episode number 22. That came out June 3rd with Dr. Rima Batra, When the Oncologist Gets Cancer. That actually was one of my favorites episodes. I ranked as number 4. I think that it's just chilling, actually, and the irony of an oncologist then becoming the patient of the very thing that you treat. And especially it was like a circumstance and how things came about for her where, it's not like she's a 75, 80-year-old woman and this, cancer as we age, but that unexpected thing that happens when you're younger and just how everything kind of lined up and fell into place for her to get treated. And you don't have to listen to it, but it's what I like about those episodes that we do is just how it really impacts people as clinicians looking at their patients going forward. So, great episode. What was the top DuckTales episode? Any thoughts? Any ideas?
Well, I know which one it should be. It should be the original COVIDiot Awards. Because that was, just to listen to the glory hole segment.
It's
forgot completely
about that.
Idiotic.
I forgot about that. Actually, you're close. It was actually the COVIDiots Part 2. Episode number 21 on May 6th, the Heroes and Zeros. So I don't know if people were getting more listeners at that point. People didn't hear COVIDiots Part 1. But yeah, that Glory Holes part is amazing. So yes, people like the COVID. I guess they didn't. I was surprised. I guess it wasn't a DuckTales or special launch party. Okay, I'm going to tell you my favorite. So I put as number 1 the whole group of the fentanyl series. How could it not be? The interview with the Reisters as well as Ben Westhoff. That is honestly, when I look back really and analyzed all the ones we did, that was mind-blowing. His book, what he did, the whole series, really where we've been with that. That's my favorite topic we've talked about. As everybody I think knows, I'm over COVID, and I know people that aren't medical are soaking up that information, and rightfully so, but that for me was number 1. And actually I put as number 2 was actually the last episode we did with Sabine Hazen. That whole her book is amazing, and I encourage everybody to get it. It's an easy read. It's super funny, but it really, I knew about the gut microbiome sort of, and everybody has heard the whole leaky gut, type thing, and probiotics are good. But wow, the whole eye-opening thing about what such a diverse culture / climate is in your gut, and how it can be linked possibly to various illnesses and disease processes, and passed down, and how we're wiping that out, and just discovering it. Like I said, it really reminds me more of those deep sea creatures that you just start to find, and you're like, wow, there's a whole other ecosystem down there that we didn't really know about. And that's a cool episode.
So are you comparing my colon to the Marianas Trench?
Well,
that's what I hear.
There are some frightening large creatures with no eyes and massive teeth in there that are really very archaic and reptilian looking. So I don't know. Maybe you've got a very...
I have a Marianas Trench filled with shit.
You have a unique ecosystem. That's all I'm going to say. Number 3 for me Actually, this will surprise you maybe, was the episode with Dr. Marcy Larson when she came on and talked about the episode is losing a child and her creation of the podcast in response to them losing their son and talking about how to talk to people that lose someone, how to talk to patients, how to talk to family members, what to say, what not to say, and how we all largely suck at it and can do a better job and helping support people in death, because death's inevitable and we celebrate life really good, and we're all about having those gender reveal parties and baby showers and, but we really suck at helping people through loss, which that pain lasts a lot longer than I think the celebration of life,
It's really weird because it's like if you kind of go to the dark side of your like humanity, as an individual,
mm-hmm.
And a lot of the celebration stuff, like if your buddy just retired and he retired early and he has more money than you, there's always that sort of tendency towards, yes, you're celebrating, but it's like, shit, I wish it was me or something, like there's always that tinge of sort of jealousy. But there's a real dark
And when someone's having a baby right now, I'm not jealous.
No, I know.
I'm glad it ain't me.
But at the same time, there's this weirdness around loss where it's like we're going to get infected by their loss if we share their loss with them. Like, I get that it's really sad and it's super sad to stand beside people when they're going through something, but it's like the way it's like when you're experiencing somebody that's had loss, it's like this reverse sort of envy. It's like, well, if I get too close to them, or if I ask them about their child, or if I remind them, it's going to rub off on me, or I'm going to make them cry all of a sudden. When, having experienced the losses that we have this year, I mean, it's not like that at all.
No, but I would say that people don't like to feel pain. And so people do what they can to avoid it, right? And so why immerse yourself in sorrow and share someone's grief? Because then you're going to have to feel pain and feel unhappiness and people,
right.
We're in a society where it's like everything. I just want my kids to be happy. I just want, it's all about pleasure and happy. And there's not.
Well, we're going to do an entire episode.
There's not
on that.
Embrace the pain and learn
right.
through that. What can you learn
Yeah.
through sorrow and pain? And
Well,
people don't. That all you see is, what's your number one wish for your kid? I just want them to be happy.
Really? I honestly, that just makes me want to, I hate that. I just want my kid to be happy. You just want your kid to be happy. Well, what if they're happy, with half a bottle of Jack Daniels and jerking off all day? Well, but they're happy.
Yeah.
They're on welfare, but they're happy. No, they're a loser. They're a morbidly obese, lust-filled loser.
That's what, back to what you're saying. I think that it's people don't want to get around pain and uncomfortableness because they want to tune that emotion out. Don't you think? I mean,
yeah. Well, he's now the head fry cook at McDonald's, but he's happy. And you know what? If you have a kid that's the highest they can go to because of, certain, challenges or disabilities, fantastic. Celebrate it. It's why I always stuck up for Walmart, because Walmart would employ people that needed jobs that no one else would. And I saw the dignity that brought some people, where the absolute
including
pinnacle,
the Uyghur Muslims in China that are making all the products that they sell.
That's a different problem. But
you opened that door.
on the local level, though, I saw the dignity that work brought to people's lives. And honestly, there's people that's the highest, achievement that they can have, right? Like, not everyone gets to go to Stanford and be a rocket scientist or an astronaut.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. Like, all of a sudden, people that would come in and would never have any personal hygiene had personal hygiene, because they had to show up for work. They had to show up with a certain level of presentability. They had to get up on time. It was amazing.
I wish they would make that mandatory for the
amazing.
customers.
So in that case, yes, they're happy.
Anyway, so that I think is I'm gonna do some little publicity again on that one for people to go back and listen to it, because it's a really good one. And number 4 for me was, I said, the episode with Dr. Batra, the doctor is patient one, on the oncologist gets cancer. And then from my number 5 was, how could it not be our special launch party announcement on April 1st.
Yes.
I think with all the texts and emails and calls and people meeting me in the store, even months later, commenting on that one and just laughing and mad at us for announcing
There's people that listen to the entire thing and actually thought that we were going to get launched to the moon and have sex in a special sex moon capsule.
It just makes me giggle.
And literally.
I don't think we can ever pull anything like that off again.
No, that was a one and done. But if you haven't listened to it, it's quite convincing until it gets entirely ridiculous.
Well, now that we've given it away, but
well, I mean, it's been out for like 9 months.
Anyways, those are my top. Those are my top.
So,
5.
which one changed the way you think the most?
Who said I changed the way I think?
No, but like the way you look at certain problems, or the way you look at, like for instance, was it Marcy Larson and her description of approaching somebody with loss? Was it because I mean I know which one mine is. Or was it Sabine? Going through the fact that there isn't just a diverse microbiome that we need to,
Well, I wouldn't say that changed the way I look at things. I mean, Sabine's episode, Dr. Hazen's episode is like mind-opening, wow, and wants me to, continue to follow that research and keep up with that more. I wouldn't say it changes the way I think about things. Is it going to change the way you look at your diet? Is that what you mean?
No. Nothing's going to change that.
You're going to eat more sauerkraut.
You're going to eat more sauerkraut.
Stop eating Twinkies. Yeah, okay.
You
don't eat Twinkies. I'm just flicking you crap. Come on,
you're flicking me biome.
You're
flicking me microbiome.
I'm trying.
That's what we're going to do from now on. That guy's entirely filled with microbiome. His arguments are microbiome.
I would honestly, I'd have to think about it, but I really think that episode. I know for sure that episode of Dr. Larson changed. We've gone through our own loss, but even with friends, and it really has changed how I approach people, patients, and friends, in what I say and don't say, and attitude.
Yeah,
I think I used to kind of tiptoe around more in the typical doctory, put on the doctory hat, deal with loss kind of thing before. Now I throw myself in there more with my own humanity, personally. Without crossing boundaries in a patient relationship. But does that make sense? Where I can actually just feel free to not have to try to compartmentalize and put on the doctor hat for everything, because it was easier for me that way. Because obviously in medicine, how many deaths have we?
Well, but plus if you see a doctor that doesn't compartmentalize, why would you want to see them? I mean, you want a guy that gets super nervous.
No, but what I meant was I think I would do that with friends too, more than I needed to.
Well, right. You go into doctor mode.
Yeah.
It's easy.
That's what I mean.
It's safe. People tend to pursue safety more than almost anything else in their lives, which will be another episode, because we are going to do an episode on suffering and safety, because nothing in this if anything in this last year has taught us, it's that you can suffer entirely fruitlessly and unnecessarily, and it destroys your life way faster than actually sucking it up and doing the hard work.
Yes.
It's amazing. For me, actually, the thing that changed my outlook on really just kind of how we've been trained and the scientific method was Harvey Risch. This concept of randomized controlled trials being the absolute gold standard, when you really look at it, the vast majority of medical practice is not practiced by randomized controlled trials. I mean, there's no randomized controlled trial for any surgeries, because it's impossible. You can't blind a surgery.
True.
You can't have a bunch of people going in for appendectomies with CT confirmed appendicitis and not take out half the appendixes and see what happens. It's common sense. And that's what's really, through the whole COVID thing too. What trumps science? Well, common sense trumps science. And his talking about how you can manipulate randomized controlled trials based on what you want to see and how you construct the trial. And then you look at who sponsors it, and they're all sponsored by industry. And then you take that and you add in Peter Bregan's, 60 years of medical practice experience, and you go, holy crap. There's stuff that works. And you got to have big pharma, and you got to have experts. But who do you trust now? And I think that's the biggest, going to be the longest, most damaging part of COVID is going to be the fact that things that we really need in a society to make it work, no one's going to trust anymore. It's like those poor people in, when was that, 2004, when that giant tsunami came in and, in Indonesia or wherever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, your first response is to run away from the gigantic wave. But if you survive, what's left is just absolute ruins. Like, you're picking up bodies and you're trying to rebuild for years and years to come. And I think like the destruction of institutions we used to trust is super, super horrible. Like, if you think of a randomized controlled trial, right? Do you need a randomized controlled trial to tell you that if you take a .45 caliber handgun and put it to your head and pull the trigger, you're going to die? The answer is no, it's common sense, right? Close range gunshot wound to the head will kill you.
Right. I think that's a known. I think we're talking about unknowns.
Right. No.
Don't seem to be as dangerous.
No, but listen to this example. But you can construct it in such a way. You could construct a randomized controlled trial in such a way that showed that putting a loaded gun to your head and pulling the trigger and discharging the bullet is 100% safe 100% of the time. That's how you construct the title.
Well, true.
You say, instead of having the tip of the barrel pushed against your head, you have the side of the barrel pushed against your head. So now you're deaf, but you're not dead. Okay? So that would be obvious to somebody when they read the construction of the study, right? It's like, well, you didn't point the business end of the gun at the right part of the person's body, so it's not really a trial. But that's the problem.
Right. It's not. It's what gets reported.
When you're dealing with super complicated science and super complicated medicine, the average doctor doesn't have the experience to know whether the barrel is resting against the side of the head or pointed at your head.
Right.
And so you have to have experts.
Yeah.
And we've just completely destroyed that. And I mean, like, Harvey was the one that, he really was not, he was just a scientist. He didn't really, he's a medical scientist. And when he saw the really good studies of hydroxychloroquine getting dismissed and how they manipulated to make it look like it didn't work because they only used it in patients that were long past it ever being effective because they were in the hospital, that's what got him into COVID. He was drawn into it by the BS first.
Right.
Not by, like, Peter McCullough, who was, we got to treat patients because they're doctors.
Exactly.
So that one just blew my mind.
Any other standouts or no?
Is that it for you? I mean, drag racing, obviously.
Of course.
I mean, that is just, that was so much fun.
I wish I could say I had memorized a favorite blooper, but all the silliness that we do on and off the recording, I can't remember them. So people will just have to go back and listen to the very end of episodes to catch them all. And of course, I did get the poll out for people's favorite blooper. I was gonna, and then there was a fail.
It happens.
It happens. So where are we going from here this year?
Well, we're going to go into, there's a few people we have to reach out to. There's some things that we would like to touch on that may be more controversial even than the COVID stuff, which...
We always going to bring that COVID as long as it's around, everybody.
Yeah, I think in the next few weeks what's going to happen is we're going to, we have an interview with a really interesting, very successful entrepreneur who has been involved in all sorts of different healthcare projects. And we're going to talk about essentially the fact that the vaccine has been a gigantic experiment, get her insights. That's going to be really cool. We will definitely do one on suffering because we've suffered enough in the last 2 years. And I think it would be really important to try to bring that into focus. We may very shortly do something just called about COVID common sense, looking back,
and
big picture.
People are wanting to know now about the new treatments coming out, including the new Pfizer pill.
You mean Pfizer Mectin?
Whatever.
Paxlovid. Yeah. We need to find an expert in Paxlovid. That would be kind of fun. And then one of our colleagues may be able to do that for us.
And I would like, along with other people who are asking, to really unravel the mystery of the PCR test and how accurate those are and what they really mean, and are they all the same? Because people think they're like a pregnancy test. It's either on or off. It's either positive, pregnant, or you're not pregnant. And
no,
it's not
quite
this
that
test,
simple. If you had a miscarriage at 20 weeks and you did the equivalent of the PCR test as a pregnancy test, you would be pregnant for like the next 2 years.
There you go. Anyway, I think that would be a good one. But without sharing too many of our dreams and visions for the next year, I think it's been a successful 2021 as far as the podcast goes. One big blessing, check mark in our life of struggles from last year. We both survived the vid. I'm on the recovery still, but here we are. And we look forward to another, I got to do the math really fast, 104th episode coming soon.
Yeah, I figure, Rogan's been doing it for 12 years. So we have 11 more years to go to get to $100 million.
I can wait.
I do 5 years for 40. I'm not fussy.
Not fussy?
No,
Okay.
I take 40 for 5
Sure.
years worth of
Great.
podcasting.
If you haven't noticed yet so far listening to this, we have no sponsor this episode. And that means the sponsor can be you. If you're out there and want to sponsor the show, just reach out to us. We have all kinds of marketing options, products, commercials, unboxings, wine tastings, you name it. Even eggnog. That was one of my favorite
total winner.
Cocktails of the year. Is the the farms.
That was let's see, River.
You think I could remember their name? It was so good. Anyway, that eggnog was like the best, and they're local. Let me see if I can find them. So yeah, if you want to sponsor us, we'd be happy to hear from you. And anything else you want to say to our audience this week before we sign off?
No, not really. I just can't imagine pumping anything more than going back and listening to the opioid stuff. It's so unbelievably pertinent.
We'll link that
to what's going on.
Here we go. RoyalRiversideFarm.com in Albany, Oregon. You can still get their eggnog right now for a limited time only. I think this is the last week if you live in Glenn County, Oregon. So check out your local grocer.
It makes me want to try all their other stuff. Like I'm freaking out wondering what their chocolate milk tastes like.
I know, right? All right, there you go. So we did a little shout out to Royal Riverside again. And thank you to our ever slowly but growing audience. We appreciate you, and our wish for this year is that you just continue to share each week's episode with one friend, colleague, coworker, family member to help our show grow so we can continue to podcast and bring you content we think that is interesting to us and you. And as always, email us for your show ideas or any questions.
All right, we'll see you next week.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know. Bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.
Bloop, bloop.
There's nothing in this context that makes me feel bloopy.
Well, your microbiome's pretty bloopy.
Well, that's just stinky. I wonder if Sabine could, like, do a serotyping of our microbiome from.
She said she'd do it for free.
From a Dutch oven.
Oh, shush. She said, contact her
Gas
guy.
chromatograph. Like literally a gas chromatograph.
She'll write a whole book just on your stool type alone. It'll be like finding unhatched dinosaur egg.
It had fangs. My shit has fangs.
No, it's like those tumors that have teeth and hair. Those teratomas.
Teratoma.
You got the
It's not a teratoma at all.
You got the teratoma of stool.
Yeah, well, you never know.
It's alive.